I like to say it this way, that electric vehicle is a mobile phone with 4 wheels and a steering wheel.
What kind of cargo do you carry?
So we invested heavily in the tech platform for him. Best thing about a startup and the worst thing about startup is you can solve only one problem. Less than 2 years, we are 1,000 plus vehicles only in Delhi NCR. I feel proud that every month, 10,000 people at least directly Magenta is able to feed them. We are now India's largest electric vehicle cargo fleet operator, operating close to around 3,000 vehicles.
Good morning, friends, and welcome to Trans India, Real People, Real Emotions. The electric vehicle space has been quite an exciting one, an electrifying one as well, if I may say. Players have been timed with a lot of vehicles, but at the moment what we see is that the smaller electric vehicles are the ones who are running successfully. Not everybody's been able to do it, but there are companies who've cracked this business. And one such company is Magenta Mobility. We are delighted to have with us the founder of Magenta Mobility, Maxine Lewis, who takes us through the journey of Magenta Mobility, how it all started, what was the mindset, what were the challenges, and of course, is Magenta Mobility also looking to get into the heavy commercial vehicle electric space? So here's our interaction with Maxine Lewis, the founder of Magenta Mobility. Good morning, Maxine, and welcome to Trans India. First, a very obvious question, and on a lighter note, you're in the green mobility space.
Yeah.
You've been there forever, where you started. Why the name Magenta? What does that stand for?
Interesting, a company with the name Magenta, that's the color. So it's a story which not many people know. So when we started way back in 2018, we wanted to do something in the green space. Sustainability was defined as green.
Right.
And everyone was naming their companies Green X, Green Y, everything was green there. And engineer and someone who wants to really dissect the problem. And so I was analyzing the spectrum of light.
Okay.
And if you actually analyze the spectrum of light, the most complementary color to green is magenta.
Okay.
So what we say is we are magenta, we help you go green. And now this is very interesting. So, and it created a problem as well. And magenta is a color which is associated, it's very feminine. It was originally, right? It was associated with something, and there are times we were called, Gulabi company.
Oh.
And one of our agency members, the marketing side said, hey, listen, this is too feminine a color for something. I said, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to create a difference. And it suddenly has now become a standout color.
Absolutely.
It's a standout name. But the ethos remains the same. We are magenta, we help you go green.
But if we're talking about the feminism part ahead, you have employed female drivers as well?
Yes, we have. In fact, because we are in the electric, we are now India's largest electric vehicle cargo fleet operator, operating close to around 3,000 vehicles. Now, this also provides an opportunity to create a difference in multiple places. And electric vehicles by itself is a lot more easier to drive.
Absolutely.
If you were to look at it, vibrations are lesser. There's no gear shift. It's almost like driving in automatic.
Right.
So the stress levels are lesser, which allowed us to open up women drivers to be participating in this entire ecosystem. And I remember the first female driver way back in 2022. From there onwards, we've kind of provided an ecosystem for women drivers to be part of this. And happy to be proud to be part of that journey.
Brilliant.
And today, we it's not a largest segment. I believe that that's not because Magenta is not offering it too, but the overall logistics ecosystem has not been very amenable to women.
Absolutely.
We're trying to make a difference, and yes, we are there. So,
You're there.
Right, we're there.
And Maxine, before we go ahead with the Magenta discussion, you have a good background in the auto space before Magenta as well. Tell us a bit about that.
Okay, so then I think I need to talk about my life journey, right? If that's okay with you. I'm a mechanical engineer from Mumbai University. Always wanted to get into the automotive space, and in those good old days when post engineering you had multiple job offers, I had multiple job offers. Yeah. So always wanted to get into the Tata, Mahindra, and others, and got offers from most of them. But I also got a job from Saint-Gobain. Saint-Gobain has two businesses. One is glass, as we know all,
Right.
but they have an interesting abrasives division, working with a lot of these automotive companies.
Right.
So I picked up that one because I found it a little bit more interesting. And I was working with the automotive companies in helping them in their manufacturing processes using abrasives. So I traveled across India. One of my clients was Bosch, with permission from Saint-Gobain. Then I joined Bosch. So I have 4 years of work experience in the automotive space.
Right.
And by that time, professionally you want to grow, etc. And I decided to do my MBA. I did my MBA from IIM Mumbai, erstwhile NITI, in the logistics space. So because NITI was known for logistics. I did my summers with Wipro, got a PPO from them. But again, fortunately for me, post-MBA, I had multiple job offers, including a PPO from Wipro. And I picked up Accenture Manager, right? And in the management consulting division.
Okay.
And one of my first projects there in Accenture was in the electricity space. I was personally responsible, along with my team, to design India's first electricity bill, which was understood by people. Those electricity bills used to, the small sheet of paper, which people didn't understand anything, but they had to know how much to pay.
Absolutely.
So part of that design process, this was for Reliance Energy, way back when Mr. Anil Ambani was trying to build something together, and I was part of that team to do that.
Right.
Did that, and then word spread. Then I was sent to Canada. And from Canada, then I went to Singapore, 3 years. From Singapore, Australia, Hong Kong, a lot of international work with Accenture. 15 years with Accenture Management Consulting. And then I was brought back into India because that time in the electricity, something interesting was happening in India. Was the fact that a lot of power plants were being built.
Right.
A lot of coal-based power plants. So I personally was responsible for more than 10,000 megawatts of power plant built in India. Lived in Jharsuguda, Lanjigarh, Korba, Noy, Punjab. Build a lot of power plants. Helped build a lot of power plants. I was the eyes and ears of a lot of promoters. Yeah. Having done that, then I took up an international stint, which is I was based out of USA, UK, doing a lot of global work, working with the electricity company.
Okay.
So in short, 4 years in automotive, MBA, and 15 years in electricity. So electric vehicle-based logistics was
electric and auto had to happen.
So it was a destiny waiting to happen. And life took a turn, and this is a very interesting, how come EV happened to
Right.
Other than the context, I was in USA, and one of my friends showed me a vehicle, which is the world's first commercially successful, if I were to say, or electric car, which was the Chevrolet Bolt.
Okay.
And this was way back when the people did not know about Teslas and BYDs. I mean, This was time when people did not even know electric. So I think this was around 2015, 16. And here I was deep in the electric space. I see an automotive which is working on electric, and all that I could feel is electricity is the new oil. I decided to go back to people and talk about it, and I realized this is an opportunity for me to do something. I saw this as a big change which is coming.
Right.
I had a choice to be either looking at being a bystander and waiting for things to happen, or to be part of that journey upfront.
Right.
And I was also looking for an opportunity to come back to India. So all of it put together, I decided to put money where my mouth is. I left Accenture after 15 years and set up Magenta. And this allowed me to be part of this amazing journey which has been in the electric vehicle space. So that's the background of what people see is today, but I think it was 20-25 years of a build up to what Magenta is.
But Maxine, transportation is considered to be a very challenging field. I mean, back in the days, they used to say, kisi se dushmani ho to truck dos ko. And you actually put yourself in that position. What led you to this?
Okay, so this is an interesting, and I will be upfront to say that, hey, listen, when we started off at Magenta, transportation was not exactly the problem statement to solve. We were trying to solve the problem of sustainable logistics.
Right.
And it has multiple flavors to it. And way back in 2018, when we set up, one of the first problems to solve was the charging space.
Right.
So we said, okay, listen, let's solve one problem at a time. And we were a startup. A startup best thing about a startup and the worst thing about a startup is you can solve only one problem. You can't try to solve world peace.
Absolutely. Of course.
But you take one problem, solve it, then move to the next problem. And the first problem we decided to solve was the electric vehicle charging infrastructure.
Okay.
Way back in 2000, and I'm just going back in the past, but not many people know it now, but everything is documented. We set up India's first solar-based EV charging station.
Where was this?
This was in Navi Mumbai. This was 14th March 2018, right?
Wow.
Then we set up the Bombay-Pune EV highway. We set up charging infrastructure. And India's first charging app was actually done by Magenta, right? The original OCPP 1.6 codes, I personally have written some part of the code, right, for India. And we were doing a lot of work in the EV charging space. And on the back of it, we were invested in by HPCL, Hindustan Petroleum Corporation Limited. We started to build a lot of depth in the hardware, software. And soon we realized that public charging infrastructure, which we were originally working in, is a long-term game. Deep pockets, deep time.
Of course.
And also at that point in time, COVID struck us, right? And everyone. But we actually grew in COVID. We did a lot of consulting assignments for large OEMs with whom you are also working. Because everyone wanted to understand EV. And this is a group of people who knew what exactly
in and out,
is.
absolutely.
And while we were consulting for others, we also realized a self-realization that, listen, I think we'll need to play the ecosystem game and not necessarily one piece of it. And as we moved out of COVID, and that's where the real Magenta, as you see today, got set up, which is we wanted to operate in the logistics space. And now you have a choice again, either move people or either move cargo.
Right.
Coming out of COVID, the most logical choice was not to go move people.
Absolutely.
And cargo was another angle to cargo, and not many people realize in terms of if sustainable transport was our mandate, the maximum impact, positive impact you can do is in the cargo logistics.
Absolutely.
And as you know, it's a place which is very highly disorganized. Like you said, na, किसी को बर्बाद करना है तो उसको गाड़ी
I know.
दे दो. But that also provided an opportunity to kind of bring a lot of ecosystem.
Correct.
And hence 2021 onwards, we focused on building the electric vehicle cargo logistics movement, supported by the same charging infrastructure we set up for ourselves. Right? While we don't do public charging, and not many people know this, we operate 100 charging hubs. 3,000 vehicles have to be charged every day.
Absolutely, yes.
But one more interesting thing is we had this entire technology layer which we had built up.
Right.
Today that is help us charge, but is also help us manage the same fleet. Sitting over here, I can tell you where exactly is my every vehicle. That's the easiest part for me. I can tell you where it is going, who's driving, how it is the driving behavior. But I can also tell you how much is the battery, what is the charge of the battery. I can tell you the state of charge of the battery. I can in fact tell you what is the temperature inside every battery of every vehicle.
But I mean, does that also give you an advantage over your competition when with having so much of data points with you?
In fact, I like to say it this way, that electric vehicle is a mobile phone with 4 wheels and a steering wheel. Because as much as a mobile phone is throwing data, electric vehicles also throw a lot of data. And it will be very foolish not to use that data. To not only work with making sure that the asset is better, but also to run your fleet.
Right.
So, yes, now that's a huge advantage because it allows you for predictability, optimization. And unfortunately, many people who got into the EV space looked at it as a very simple, if I'm running an ICE vehicle, I just switch it to an EV.
Yeah.
But that is not how it has to be seen at. If that is the only, then you are just replacing a energy system. But you have to replace not only energy system, you need to replace process system, you have to replace technology system.
Absolutely.
And that interplay today is allowing us an amazing amount of insights. And trust me, the way we take decisions is hugely data-driven. Data-driven.
So, Maxine, can you take us through the operations at Magenta currently? How many cities, how many vehicles,
Sure.
What kind of cargo do you carry?
Right. And again, everything is a story, right? It's a journey, right? In transportation itself is a journey. It's a journey from point to point. So Magenta's journey is also a journey. So when we started off, we were analyzing what are the kind of vehicles we should take. Because see, here you are trusting the vehicle, right? So there are 3 elements to it. It's the driver, the asset, okay, and the process. These three.
But tell me, you were very clear right from the start that we want to have EVs only. That
Yes.
was a given.
That was a given for us. I would say clean mobility. Now, the most inherently, the ecosystem allowed for electric vehicles to be it. Tomorrow, it could be something else.
Right.
It should be cleaner. But at that point in time, electric it was.
Okay.
Right. So we were clear that we will go with electric only, and we will not isolate ourselves from it. We will not allow anything to seep in which is non-EV at that point.
Right.
And that allowed us to kind of provide depth into it.
Mm-hmm.
So we started off with EV. We were analyzing which EV. Two-wheelers was not something we wanted to do for multiple reasons. And like I say, there are three non-negotiables with Max & Lewis and Magenta.
Mm-hmm.
Safety, quality, and integrity.
Right.
From a safety perspective and quality perspective, two-wheelers did not meet our requirements then. Now they don't meet the safety requirements.
Okay.
So that's one of the reasons why. Because officially two-wheelers is not a cargo. True. People use it for cargo. That's a different thing.
But it's not there. Not
It's
classified.
It's not a classified. And Magenta, we will not do that. We will not do. We will not misuse definitions to so we were very clear about it. So two-wheeler was out. The only vehicles which made sense at that point and which were available was the three-wheeler. So we started off with three-wheelers. We started off deploying three-wheelers and in the e-commerce space.
Okay.
And when we started off with the e-commerce, it gives us a ability to get inroads and volumes, and we grew steadily. And one thing which we did, which many of our competitors, if I were to say, and respectful competitors, is we did not spread it across cities. We said, we'll take one city, we'll go deep into it. And only once we get everything right, be it the people, the processes, then we will expand. And fortunately for us, that was a good strategy.
Okay.
Right? Because it's a new ecosystem. It's a new business line, if I were to say. It was not only for us, even for the client.
Mm-hmm.
So that strategy played out. So we started off our first deployment in Bangalore.
Okay.
Right? While we were a Bombay-based company, but Bangalore, because Bangalore was amenable to adoption of EV. And a lot of our customers also, the e-commerce companies, they wanted us. So we started off with Bangalore. We got it to a size which is 100 plus. And I look at it that way saying, if it is less than 100, it is a pilot in a city. So from Bangalore, we came to Mumbai. We did work in Hyderabad, etc. And we got the south really strong. And then we went west.
Okay.
And for a long time, we waited to get to Delhi. Now, the reason for that is very logical. Like I said, you need to get operationally right.
Right.
And especially Delhi is a vast market. If you copy something wrong, you will get it, you will mess it up.
Absolutely.
So for a long time, while everyone was asking us to come down to Delhi, we waited for a long time. But when we started off with 50 vehicles in Delhi NCR. Within now less than 2 years, we are 1,000 plus vehicles only in Delhi NCR.
Wow.
Right? And why? Because we got it right. And then when expansion happened, we did not have to think of getting it right in Delhi. The cultural element, the local elements, yes, but the overall
play was in place, yes.
So today what we are, it's so today we are around close to 2,800 plus vehicles. Delhi is the largest, right? Delhi NCR, when I say.
Right.
We are in Mumbai, of course. We are in Bangalore. We are in Hyderabad. We are in Pune. We are in Jaipur and 3 cities in Gujarat. But we are highly, I call it the north, south and west kind of large cities. We are not in eastern part of India yet. We will not want to expand to other cities till the time now from 3,000, once you have crossed 5,000.
Okay.
So that's a strategy, it's part of a planned strategy. We call it, super concentration.
Right.
Super concentration allows us efficiency. Efficiency allows us to scale within the city and then scale to others. So that's where we are.
Incredible journey. So Braxton, what was the customer's response, when you went to them, okay, I'm coming with you with an EV.
Yeah.
And tell me, does the freight or the cost of operation of an EV is actually, while it may be lower, what about the acquisition cost? How do you balance it out?
And this is a very interesting question. So I take it as two questions in one. One is how the client looked at it and how the entire TCO kind of worked.
Correct.
So I think initially the only clients who were open to it, while everyone talked about sustainability. I mean, every company today has a sustainability mandate. But the people who really started the sustainable logistics journey was the e-commerce companies.
True.
And you know the names, and we work with most of them. There, the original conversation was sustainability, but I don't want to kid away from the fact that, or shy away from the fact that at the top level, it will be sustainability level conversations. But when it comes to the procurement officers, and I like to say this is
Small, just one part.
everyone talks green, green for the board report. But the procurement officers, I want green on my balance sheet.
Absolutely.
So the conversation starts there, but it lands at, hey, listen, I just want to move from A to B goods. How best can it be for make cost?
Cheapest cost. Yes.
So, and this is one of the strategies we took, is we allowed the green conversation to allow us foot in the door.
Okay.
But when it came down to the ground logistics, we said, and this is where I think also some of the competitors did a mistake, because they did not push back to say, listen, just because it's electric, it doesn't mean it's cheaper, right? My operation cost is lower, but my acquisition cost is higher.
Absolutely.
So we stuck our ground. We said, no, we will not do a price discounting.
Okay.
We did not go for price discounting. We said, we will stick to our numbers. We will come back to you. If I get a better price, I'll give it to you. But we will not do a price discounting. And this is one of the reasons why many companies who started off in this space got it wrong. They positioned EV not only green, they said it is also cheaper.
Cheaper, yes.
Right? And now this is an interesting of what's really happening. 3 years ago, the journey, the electric vehicles were expensive. As compared to an ICE vehicle, 50% higher acquisition cost. So essentially, you're paying for the fuel upfront.
In a way, yes.
And hence your cost of capital is also higher. Today, what is happening is today, of course, the battery prices have reduced extensively. So I remember 2 years ago, it was $128 per kilowatt hour. Today, it's around 68 and still reducing. Which means the inherent raw material cost is reducing, which is 40%, but also the OEMs are getting it better now.
Right.
By scale, etc. So where exactly have we landed on the TCO? Today, I would believe for the three-wheelers, essentially, if you get, and I'm not talking from a Magenta perspective, from an ecosystem perspective, the TCOs have fallen in place.
Okay.
For a driver, for a person who can buy the vehicle right now, it is, in fact, it is very interesting that some electric vehicles are almost at par, 10 to 15% premium to a non-EV, which is ICE. Which means if you're able to do a funding better, you are actually able to get, it's a pure OPEX scheme. Many people also got into a wrong notion saying, oh, because it is electric, isme parts kam hai, so maintenance nahi hoga. So you are offsetting maintenance costs or real not. No, we said no, let us understand it better. Because it is not really maintenance cost, which is cost of spares. It was availability of spares, which was an issue. And which is also cost of downtime.
Absolutely.
And like you realize now, it's all data-driven and,
Correct.
So we got down to that and we realized, no, this is also a cost. Let's bake that in. There's a cost of uncertainty of technology. And we have also learned it the hard way. I will not share, I call it Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3.
Okay.
So the Gen 1 vehicles that we got, we went through our own learning along with the OEMs. We work very closely with the OEMs. We provided them insight ki ye problem hai, ye failures hai.
But you had any major glitches in the starting
Oh yes,
phase?
we did. One of the first glitches was committed range was not available. And that time everyone was learning. I won't call it any specific OEM's problem. It was an ecosystem problem.
Right.
But claimed range was, let's say, 100 kilometers, 150 kilometers. Actual range was initially 100 kilometers. But battery, degradation, and not essentially because of battery itself, because of the BMS, because of the way it was charged.
Right.
We had some major issues.
Okay.
So the failure rates are very high. In fact, we have today wiped out our Gen 1 vehicles. We don't own any of our Gen 1 vehicles today because they start to drain you down.
The failure cost was high.
Failure costs. Then you're having a driver who's already stressed out driving. Any reason for him not to drive? He was trying to say, okay, sab electric gaadi aise hai, which we knew was not the case.
Right.
So we had to work with the driver community, the OEM community to prove, yes, these were wrong and we were very upfront. हमने गलती की है. These vehicles are not right for us. Move them out.
But what about the customers? I mean,
correct.
Did the deliveries also get hampered?
They did get hampered. And at many times, I remember the days we used to call it the 1.2 ratio. For every, so for every 100 odd vehicles, we had to keep 20 vehicles as a backup.
Oh, God.
And we did that. We've actually done that because for us, as a company, we had to prove to the world that this is correct. The overall journey is correct. Isme glitches aayenge.
Right.
And we took the risk of proving that. And we worked with the client. We said, hey, listen, this is the problem. You're paying me for only one vehicle, but I have to keep the additional. I'm ready to do that. And I remember days we used to have a vehicle and not a vehicle. We had to also have a driver. We called it a backup system.
Yes, of course.
I remember my ops team crying and saying, listen, sir, I'm pushing them for listen out metrics. Saying, there's another 20% to be kept. So that was a learning. That's a journey. We went through that journey. Then we came to Gen 2. Now, Gen 2, the problem was slightly different. Gen 1 was everything was a problem.
Right.
Gen 2 was where the vehicles were decently okay. Spares was not available because they are also scaling up. The OEM was scaling up, but their after sales and after service was not scaling up. So that was a secondary problem. The product was fit, everything was okay, but this became a problem. Today, where we are, and fortunately that happened, and I would call it happened very fast. So there were a lot of, I do not know whether you know this number, but at one point in time, because I track the EV market and the logistics market, 2021, there were close to around 150 OEMs for two-wheelers. Today, there are 8. Right? What has happened to the others?
Yes. Wiped out.
And around the same time, there were close to around 50 OEMs for three-wheelers. 50 to 60, if I remember. Today, what? There are 6.
Yes. It's down.
It's down. So what has happened is that consolidation of the market happened fast. It was scary for me as well and scary for a lot of people. Now, when that consolidation is happening, you have to, make sure what you want to do in that spectrum. How do you play that? And we were a data-driven company. So to that extent, we were very clear what are the decisions. So we knew that the journey is correct. We need to support the OEM. We need to support the client. We need to support ourselves. And in that journey, we were able to do that. And today, what is it? Today, if you look at the three-wheelers, there are close to only 5 or 6 OEMs. In the four-wheeler, fortunately, you have some very structured companies who are out there who are doing this. Where are we today in this journey of the EV logistics? Today, you have very good companies. You don't have the companies who are trying things out. Okay, and of course, Magenta is also a startup. There are a lot of startups, but with some, they had to get the things straight.
Right.
Today, we have the EV ecosystem is sorted in terms of the product. The charging ecosystem is, and I want to talk about it, but the charging is also kind of sorted.
It's getting there, right?
It's getting there.
Yes.
The OEMs have learned along with us. The client has also understood that, hey, listen, just because it is, they have also started to understand, empathize with us, work with us.
Okay.
And today, our biggest customer is no longer the e-commerce. I would say less than 35% of our business comes from e-commerce. Today, and I love to say this.
Less than 35%?
Less than 35%.
Which was, I think, more than 80-90% when you started.
When we started. So what are we doing? We transport lubricant oil on our electric vehicles. We transport electric vehicle two-wheelers on our electric vehicles.
Wow.
We transport mattresses. We transport auto components. We transport food. I wish I could give you the names out, but and all of these are and we transport pharma as well. So what has happened is we've been able to open up logistics the way it should be.
Right.
Took us time. We've burnt a lot of money and no shying away from it.
I'm sure.
But that expertise, the depth of knowledge, today we are in a position to say no. If someone comes and says, can you do this on an electric? I would say, are you clear why you want to do it? If yes, these are some of the constraints. If we can work within the constraints, then this is the best place. And for us now, instead of we now trying to pull, it's a push.
Absolutely.
In Delhi city, you cannot transport if it is not an electric or a stage 6. Bharat stage.
You are the obvious choice.
Now that's where. So we have to live through this. We have to build through this. So today we are a default in that space. And fortunately for us, the competition also is very, very limited.
Nobody of your scale, I think.
In the pure electric, none of us.
None,
Right?
right.
But respectfully, I mean, one of the OEMs only told us that we are India's one of the Indian Rajya, but a lot of the existing transporters, the conventional, if I were to call it, who want to move in the EV space, they are doing some amazing things. And today, our competition is no longer the EV operators. Our competition is the traditional transporter who has not really understood it or who is not using data-driven decision making. So I believe that, of course, it will continue. We don't believe in competition. I've always never believed in that. We're happy to support or work together as well. So this is where we are as an overall journey of how the EV logistics ecosystem is.
So, Paxton, you got the vehicles right. You studied the market, getting it right. You got the markets right. You got everything in place. The biggest challenge for the industry on the whole is the man behind the wheel.
Absolutely.
And you need 3,000 of them.
Or more.
And more. How do you get that?
In the transportation segment, especially in India, the person who's looked down most is the driver. And I say this, no father wants his son to be a driver.
Absolutely.
Right? And unfortunate, and I want to put some numbers behind it. India's logistics as a percentage of GDP is the highest in the world. I think it is around 18% where the global number is around 10 to 12, right? Now, which means there's a lot of inefficiency. Close to around 6% inefficiency. And if you multiply it by the GDP, that's the kind of value.
Juice, absolutely.
And where is the inefficiency? The person who bears the brunt of that inefficiency is the driver. He's the most unqualified, the least paid, maximum brunt on the road. He is seen as the first person to be hit if anything happens.
Yes.
And we analyzed this way back. And we said, okay, this is also going to be a journey. Right? While we're getting everything right, we have to get this right. And I will say that we've still not got it right, but I want to tell you what we have done.
Mm-hmm.
So first thing first, when we were looking at it, we talked to a lot of drivers, understood what they're looking for. One of the things that they were looking for is certainty.
Right.
Okay. And what does certainty mean? In the driver community, certainty means that I have to feed my family. I want the money or correct money at the correct
time. Yes.
And the first principle, which is as much, and even till today, we have never defaulted even by a day on our employees' salaries. Okay. We have never defaulted even by a day for our drivers' salaries.
Incredible.
Not a day. Now, what that did is it changed a couple of things. One, there was a certainty. We may not have been the highest in terms of our pay masters, right, but there was a certainty.
Correct.
And suddenly the same driver now became a bankable person, which means because there was certainty, he becomes there's credits, etc. coming to him. So that was one layer of managing the driver. But everyone talks about safety, training for the drivers, etc. But I believe those are outcomes. You have to basically understand the ethos of how this driver operates.
Right.
Okay, so for him, the certainty of money was important. Then the second layer we got is in terms of making him easy to adopt to come on board. So a driver management app is a 3-click. So, and I give credits to a couple of people who thought about this way earlier. So if he wants to get onboarded to Magenta, he doesn't need to bring his license, etc. He just has to connect us to his DigiLocker.
Okay.
And this we did in 2021, 22.
Wow.
Right? So all of it is integrated. He gets it. He has a driver app in which he checks what is he earning. All of it is integrated. All his training programs are also on the app.
Okay.
Right? So we invested heavily in the tech platform for him and also in the training program. Now, once that was done, and layer by layer, we said, okay, what is his other problem to solve now? So he needs to get a slightly higher value than what he gets outside. He's getting respectfully and on time. Right. Now we can increase. So we started to run a program called as the B2D2C, where the same driver who was originally working with us and was working to a salary with a fixed plus a variable component, today now he can go to a variable component totally.
Okay.
So he can rent out the vehicle from us and deploy us on our own platform.
Oh.
So today, I wouldn't want to call it the Chalak to Malak is an end game we are looking for. But we are halfway there. So that improved, and today he is now in an ownership. The day a driver puts a murti in the vehicle, That is his ownership,
Right.
and we managed to achieve that.
Brilliant.
And then now let's come to the next part and say, okay, now what next? We ran programs which we realized that these drivers, there are three age groups. One is the person who's just doing it because he's just out of college, he doesn't have a job, hence he's doing this. And given a best opportunity, he'll move out.
He'll move on. Right.
Second is a middle age who's just married, who has no kids, who's just building up his family. So his requirement for that money is to set for the long term. And third one who's already in an age where he has children, etc.
Right.
So to address each, we did some things differently. For the one in the middle, we were handing out, instead of money as an additional, we used to hand out something called as a cooking stuff. Vessels, rice, dal, and we did it on a quarterly basis. Why? Because we realized that the woman in the house wants to ensure that you should go to work to that company जिसने हमको ये खाना दिया. It was such a huge success. So that brought us an attachment. Then we started to work on a welfare of the drivers. Okay. So we formed something called as a driver welfare scheme. And we did this way before the government mandate. Today there's a mandate. But we did this before that. I actually worked on an international driver welfare scheme to that. So for every driver right now who's working with us, we put X amount, and it's not a big amount, 50 rupees per month per driver goes into that pool. And that pool is now become a pool which is operated by a group of people, a kind of a society. For example, that group of people can say this driver requires for beti ki shadi hai, ya
some medical
expenses, etc. So he can draw from that. And of course, our drivers do have medical insurance. Right? They have. So we started from the scratch, but built steadily by steadily. So today, what does a driver feel when he works with, we call it driver partner, that works with us, is he gets respect, he gets money on time, now he has visibility, and now another layer is welfare is also being taken care of. So our age on network, we called it our AON, which is the age on network, which is how much time a driver, typically in this field, a typical AON is around 3 months.
Is it?
Yes, it is 3 months because it's the largest component is of people who are getting in, who are the typical food delivery person.
Right.
He's doing it out, not because that's the only thing. It's another thing before he finds his next. Yes. We were able to convert that to someone who feels that this is something which is a respectable job. And the best part is because it is electric, the amount of stress, there's no gear change.
Effort is less. Fatigue is
a lot. I wouldn't say the Indian roads do not allow for negligible fatigue. I see that's a theory to talk about.
Yes, absolutely.
But for us today, we are, I think, probably one of the highest in terms of AON.
Okay.
Right? And in the last mile, mid-mile logistics. So it's been a journey. Can I say hand on heart that we have solved the problem for them? The answer is a no. But solving it. And one important thing that we're doing right now is the way we are working the Chalak to Malak model, which was possible in ICE because the RV, as the residual value of the vehicle was, we are ready to again take a risk on it and build that.
Okay.
So not been an easy journey, but step by step. And today I feel proud that we have more than 3,000 drivers, partners associated with us. We have more than them. Even if you were to take a scale of 1:3, husband, wife, and kid on an average, I feel proud that every month, 10,000 people, at least directly, Magenta is able to feed them, be part of their life journey.
Absolutely.
That's what keeps me excited.
Actually, any thoughts on, getting the wives also to drive? Have you ever tried that model?
We tried that, but we had initial conversations, but I don't think it worked. Okay. For two reasons. There is always, and let's be real about it, there's always this apprehension कि मेरा पति काम पे गया है and he needs to return safe. And like I said, right, no, our father wants his side to be a driver. I don't think every wife doesn't want it to be. So that angle never played out.
Okay.
There were, in fact, the women drivers we found were people, and these are, I feel proud of the fact that these were women drivers who by themselves looked at it as a journey. They got into this not because they wanted to be. They got into this because of their own personal problems, but they found that this was possible.
Yes.
Unfortunately, 2-3 things, I wouldn't want to say that this is a big community. If anyone wants to say, oh, listen, we employ X number of women drivers and...
Sure, it's just, you can count on your fingers, the number of drivers, yes.
Anything you feel push artificially will not work. Right? So we are identifying this. We are trying to build that community, but yeah, but not necessarily the wives of our drivers.
But Maxine, from an industry point of view, what steps do you think need to be taken to bring down driver shortage? I mean, from a larger scale, I'm not just talking about EVs or smaller vehicles, major trucks also.
In fact, I've been tracking this industry for a long time, like I said, logistics. And whenever I answer, I don't want to respond from a Magenta perspective, but on overall logistics. And unfortunately, like I said, the driver community is the most disrespected person on the Indian roads, right? It's the largest constitution but the person who is responsible for moving the goods and adding to the GDP is the driver. Now, couple of things, and couple of these may sound philosophical in a certain way, but if we don't think about it, we will not making a good start. So first thing first is, I think, and you know that there's a lot of handoffs which happen on the Indian roads, right? I think those need to be really curtailed.
Absolutely.
But there's a good thing that's happening. Today, the handoffs which were happening, everything is digitized. I think I give it credit to the government to push it in that direction. So that's really happening. What really now the driver, if you were to look at the driver's dissatisfaction indexes, these are spikes. And I try to analyze it. One is on road, which is the traffic, but that's a problem with it. Another big problem is the waiting time.
Yes.
Right? And unfortunately, and you may be knowing that, I think we close to around 30 to 40% of the overall time is on stranded.
Correct.
Right? And waiting time not on the road, waiting times on the entry and exits and other places.
With no facilities.
No facilities.
Yes.
And then it gets into a disillusion mode. It creates other vices, etc. So I think what is required right now, and this is one of the big infrastructure playbook, and yesterday I was discussing this with someone with a large company, which is looking at it very differently. They are looking at it as intermodal complexes.
Okay.
Right? At multiple such complexes across cities where the drivers will come in, docking, etc. could be faster. So these are some very interesting infrastructural requirements. You just don't need a road. You need endpoints also.
Absolutely.
I think that is something which is required. One more thing is, I think that, that some of the biggest influencers, social media influencers are driver communities. There are a couple of them, right?
Absolutely, yes.
So while we may think of them as not so savvy about technology, they are absolutely savvy.
Every truck driver has a smartphone where he does a whole lot of things besides work, of course.
Yes, absolutely. So I think that's an option where if there's a structured view of how we can educate them online, etc., and all of this, and like I said, right, I don't have a solution to it, but these are multiple of these things need to start playing together.
We need to take some initiatives. We have to start somewhere at least.
Correct. And and many people have spoken about it. I've seen you. I'm a ardent follower of Trans Topics, so I know many people have spoken about it. Some people have done something about it. I think and this is an urge to a lot of the clients that we have, especially the e-commerce world, right? If you do not take care of that last mile person, you're actually creating inefficiencies. So as much as the e-commerce companies and others have started to say, build sustainability through EV, I think there's another opportunity to build in sustainability by taking care of the drivers.
Absolutely.
Right? And I cannot tell this to everyone, but I can tell this to a group of, and I believe the e-commerce world is a lot more amenable to it. They are a little bit more forward thinking.
Correct.
They could do something about it, and more than happy to participate in a journey like that.
Excellent. Right? Maxine, coming back to the Magenta journey, you've kind of mastered the art of, the small vehicle space. You've got more or less things in place.
More or less, yeah.
More or less. when are you taking the big leap to the bigger trucks, which are a huge asset cost? Tell me, but before that, I mean, before the Magenta journey gets there, do you think these trucks are viable in today's time?
Straight answer, no. And I know many people are going to hate it, right? When I was talking about EV trucks,
Yes.
not many people are going to like this answer. But
And why so? I mean, what's your theory behind it?
sure. And before I qualify it, it was the same thing for three-wheelers also. But today the TCOs have fallen in place.
Right.
So it's going to be a journey. And let me just explain what's really happening in that space. So so you have these three-wheelers. In the four-wheelers, you have 1.8, 2.5. Slowly, steadily, newer variants are coming in. But it's in the range where it's the 2.5, 2.8, intras and all of that. And at the other segment, you have the 55 tonners,
Right.
electric trucks. Now, this is a very interesting theory, and just hear me out on this, if time allows, is unlike the diesel vehicle or an ICE vehicle, the more weight you put, the only difference that happens is your kilometers per unit of diesel reduces.
Correct.
But you can fill it up and move ahead.
Yes.
In electric, the larger formats means larger loading. The larger loading means your output from the battery reduces, your range from the battery reduces. How will you increase the range? By increasing the battery.
Yes.
So it's a second, in mathematical terms, it's a second rank problem. It's not a one rank problem. It's a second, it's raised to 2, raised to 3. Wala. So if you're solving a problem, you'll have to solve two problems at the same time.
Right.
So currently, the ranges for these trucks is also still stuck at 120, 150 kilometers.
True.
Then you have to charge and move ahead. Yes, it serves very specific use cases. I call it a closed circuit use cases. These trucks do operate.
Okay.
Cements, wherever you have point A and point B defined,
Yes.
and they are within that range.
Short.
Brilliant.
Yes.
It really works. The moment you go it in an open circuit, it fails. This is one technically a problem with the electric trucks. Second, which is a smaller problem today, is the cost of these vehicles. Right, a typical truck is what, 50 lakhs, 50 on road, etc.
Yes.
An electric truck would be 1 crore plus. Yeah, 1 crore plus. And with that is also getting sorted. But at this point of the TCOs would have worked if the technical problem was solved, saying, okay, you can move you have to optimize, right? True. But since you have the constraint is not only about the cost, the constraint is also about the point A to point B. Right. Hence, in my mathematics, and I'm not a great my Excel sheet, if I were to call it, or business modeling, and I'm not great at it. But for whatever I've done, the numbers are not stacking up. Okay. Right. I believe it's going to be a year before this stacks up. 1 year. But we can't wait for the year. OEMs also have to depend upon it. They have to do something. Clients have to also starting. So brilliantly, some of the clients are working towards it. So what are the 2-3 things that can happen from a client perspective? They have to understand that electric is not cheaper. At best, you can be
the most important thing. I think that message needs to go out.
Perfect. So do not say, okay, just because it's electric, it is cheaper. Second, I think what is required is now someone, let's say if I'm putting 1 crore as against a 50 lakhs, which means I have a longer vision to this, but it needs to be backed by a longer contract.
Absolutely right.
All that it don't increase price, but give me a longer contract and I can then use it as a bankable asset, or contract is a bankable product, is a bankable document. I can go back to the bank and say, I have long-term contracts, and my cost of financing reduces, which effectively reduces the cost of getting this vehicle. Third, I think the OEMs. I also believe that the OEMs need to be open to how this entire thing, it's important to say the right things, right? Just saying that, okay, the TCOs have fallen in place doesn't, because finally a transporter is one of those, while he may not be the smartest on his this one, but he knows his ganit, jisko bahut so he needs to be told the right thing. He needs to be told, hey, listen, this is how it is. Follow it up with a long-term contract with select clients. You don't need to change entire electric.
Yes, correct.
I think these 2-3 things, if you were to move together, I think if all of it will, and it will fall in place. I believe 1 year down the line, this will be a positive TCO.
So is Magenta moving into that space?
A great question, which I wish I could just share, but why not? But not now.
Okay, but it is there somewhere on the drawing board. It's there.
It could be there because if the TCO, because we like I said, the mandate is clean logistics, sustainable logistics, and logistics includes everything for us. So when it comes to that, when the right product, when the right fit is there, we will not shy away from it. But like I said, if we took time to go to multiple cities, we'll take time to go to different formats also.
And is there a demand from your customers? I mean, they would have seen the kind of efficiency you're providing with the smaller trucks. They said, Maxim, why not here also?
My biggest problem is how do I say no to them? Every client of ours who's tasted magenta or got colored with magenta today has been requesting us. We did pilots. We started to understand. We've spoken to OEMs, and we respectfully said no. But now that respectfully, like, oh, others are doing, why are you not doing? Great, they are doing in their own way. We are not yet ready for it, and I don't want to start off with something which I'm not ready for. So, to answer your question, there's huge demand.
Mm-hmm.
I think electric by itself is a journey which everyone is going to adapt by push or pull is how ready you are for it now.
Right.
So even in the large formats.
Right. Maxim, one last question. You've come so far. What are your future plans for the next, let's say, 5-10 years? Where do you see Magenta? How many more cities painted?
Interestingly, I was running this program called as Ab Ki Baar 10,000.
Yes, I remember that. I remember that.
You're the first ones I took that photo. So I'll give you some. Today we are India's largest electric vehicle cargo fleet operator. We want to be, first of all, India's largest cargo fleet operator now. Right? So that's the second journey we went to, second step, irrespective of EV and not. We
Right.
in fact don't talk about EV itself at all, generally. And then we want to be, and if you know, the world's largest cargo fleet operator operates close to 1 lakh vehicles.
Wow.
Okay. And it's based out of China. Okay. Now it is 1,10,000 approximately. So which means there are operators, if you can get the tech. People have always been worried that, okay, asset itna base kaise manage karenge? No, it's manageable if you get things right. So we know what are our pathways. So that's one pathway we are working towards is from a size perspective, right? From India's largest electric to India's largest logistics to world's largest. This is a very clear path. In terms of, we are also working towards our profitability indexes, etc. We have a very clear plan on that. We have date-wise. So 5 years down the line, when we are sitting here together, I wish I could say we are the world's largest cargo fleet operator.
Incredible. Thank you so much, Maxim, and all the best for that journey.
Thank you so much, and I wish you all the best into Trans Topics as well, and continue to do the great work that you do. And thanks for this opportunity you gave me to come and talk about Magenta.
Well, thank you. Well, friends, that was our interaction with Maxim, and as you can clearly see, it's not just about driving these vehicles or operating these vehicles, it's about managing these vehicles. This is what electric vehicles demand. They need to be managed well. They need to be used in a way where all data points are covered, captured, and used to get the best out of these vehicles. We hope Magenta Mobility will be a guiding light for all others who are looking to make a name for themselves in this space. We will be back again next week with another very interesting interaction. So until then, stay safe and drive safe. Jai Hind.